Yo, what's up, world? Welcome back to the channel. APW Sports signing in. The 2022-23 NFL season has concluded. The Chiefs are the Super Bowl champions. Now it's time to do another look back and grade each of the starting quarterbacks, whether it was a couple of games, whether the guy started the full season. I'm going to give my thoughts on each starting quarterback that we had during the 2022-23 NFL season. But before I get into my rankings and my thoughts, make sure you guys leave this video a like as it continues to help this channel to grow. And as well, click the subscribe button and notification bell so you will not miss any other content that I post. But it's time to grade these quarterbacks. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Alright, so the first quarterback we have on this list is Joe Burrow. I'm going to put him in the S category. He was in the conversation for league MVP. He really started to get hot later on down the stretch of the season. And that Bengals team made another AFC Championship game appearance when usually teams that don't make the Super Bowl usually have a slip-off. But Joe Burrow just finds ways to continue to get better and better and better. And don't be surprised if he wins an MVP in the very near future. Next guy that we have on this list is a guy like Kenny Pickett, and I'm going to put Kenny Pickett in the C category. It's still a little bit too early to judge. He had a stretch earlier on during his starting period where he threw a lot of interceptions, but I think as the season got down the stretch, he started to play a little bit better. It's interesting to see where he's going to go next year during his first full season as a starter, but I'm going to put him at a C for now. Next is Trevor Lawrence. I'm flip-flopping between A and B in my head for him, but I'm going to put him at the A category. He really led this Jacksonville Jaguars team down the stretch from a team that was pretty much looking out of it to a team that not only won the AFC South division, even though that division was pretty much bad, and they led a 27-point comeback in the playoffs against the Los Angeles Chargers, despite him throwing 4 picks in the first half. So, Trevor Lawrence, he's starting to get better and better. We're starting to see why he was that #1 overall pick in 2021, and the sky, I think, could be the limit for him with Doug Peterson as his head coach moving forward. Trevor Lawrence, A tier. Deshaun Watson, I'm going to put him at a B tier. It was too small of a sample size to really judge. And by the time he came back, the Browns were pretty much out of it. So it wasn't really much to watch with Deshaun Watson at this point. But the time he did play, he looked solid. So I'm going to give him a C grade, a B grade, excuse me. Next is going to be Jacoby Brissett. I'm going to give him a C. I've always been a fan of Jacoby Brissett as your backup. He can come in and do those spot type of duties and spot moments. I'm not one that's going to say he's a full-time starter, but when he had his moments with the Browns last year, he had some good games, he had some bad games. So I'm going to put him at the C tier. Next is Lamar Jackson. I'm putting Lamar at a B. He had a injury history, excuse me, later on for the Baltimore Ravens. And it's interesting to see if they're going to give him some receiver help. Now, I'm not going to say he's bad. I've always been one to say that he needs to improve throwing outside of the numbers. I've always been one to say that. Lamar Jackson, dynamically running the football, he's very dynamic. But I'm going to put him at the B tier. And next is Lamar Huntley. I don't know. It's just crazy that he's played, 3 or 4 games and he made the Pro Bowl. That was weird. He did solid, but Pro Bowl worthy? Nah. I would have put Jacoby Brissett in before I put him in, if you want to be honest. But I'm going to put him in the C tier. 3 games, small sample size, but he was solidly. I hate to do this to my guy Mitch, but it's over with Mitch. I'm going to put him at a D. it just didn't look good from him from the start. It just really didn't. As much as I was one on this channel to say that everything wasn't Mitch, starting to look like Mitch wasn't the guy that we thought he could be. Even though we saw a little bit of that in Chicago, but it's not it. Malik Willis, I'm going to put him at a D as well, even though he had a small sample size as well. But the sample size he had, it didn't look good. It just did not look good at all. Not at all. And I was one that said last year's quarterback class was not one to really gloss over. And it's starting to look like it. Next, we're going to have Davis Mills. We're going to put him at a C. He's just pretty much average at this point. And that's why Houston is going to look for a new quarterback in this draft. Davis Mills he's a backup at this point. But the season he had last year, I'm going to put him at a C. Next is Joshua Dobbs. I mean, that Titan quarterback situation was a mess to begin with. So, and he did look solid, but it's just like not too much you can get from him, and him being very late addition to the franchise and throwing right in the start. Next is Matt Ryan. He looked awful. I'm not going to lie to you guys. He did not look good at all. He did not look good at all. And it's looking like his career could possibly be over. That's just me. I'm not going to say he's going to retire or anything, but it just doesn't have it anymore. And I'm going to put Ryan Tannehill probably right along on that same boat. Not really a big fan of a lot of these AFC South quarterbacks. They just did not have good years, and that's partly why that division was so bad, because none of the quarterbacks were stepping up. Next is Derek Carr. I'm going to put Derek Carr at a B. I've said this ever since he got benched. He shouldn't have gotten benched. I always said a lot of the Raiders' problems weren't always Derek Carr's fault. The defense, especially in secondary, wasn't great. The offensive line wasn't great. I did a video about his next possibilities, but from what we've seen from Derek Carr last year, he had pretty much a very similar season to what he had in past years. So I put him at a B tier. He got Devontae Adams the ball. He got a lot of injuries, whether it was Waller or Renfro. This team struggled, and everything wasn't on him, and it made Derek Carr look like the scapegoat. But when Derek Carr was clicking, he was clicking and playing some good football, so I'm going to put him at a B. Next, Cooper Rush. I'm going to put him at a C. I'm going to put him at a C. For the time then that he was in, he looked solid, but it was just, I think, a more product of that running game and that defense. Cooper Rush looked solid, don't get me wrong. But when he had his chances, he played solidly. He didn't play great, so I'm going to put him at average at a C. Dak Prescott, I'm flip-flopping between A and B, but I'm going to put him at a B mainly because he turned the football over at times. And if it wasn't for the turnovers, he probably would be in an A tier for me. This was probably the first season that we seen Dak Prescott really turn the football over like that. But there was another year from Prescott where this team just could not get over the hump. They just have something that just cannot get over that proverbial hump. And Dak Prescott kind of struggling has something to do with it. So I'm going to put Dak Prescott at a B. Next is Daniel Jones. I'm also going to put Daniel Jones at a B. His athletic ability helped this New York Giants team be successful. But I just really didn't see that one game from him outside of the playoff game against Minnesota where he just played just absolutely great football. Now, I'm not going to put him at the C tier with the rest of the quarterbacks that are a C. I think he was just a step above the C tier, which is why I have him at a B. It's interesting to see what they're going to do with him with the Giants this offseason. Next is Gardner Minshew. I mean, he played solidly during his spot duty with the Eagles when Jalen Hurts was out. They lost both of those ball games, but it was just something that Gardner Minshew, it's clear to see that he wasn't Jalen Hurts. I'll say that. But he did play solid for the time that he was in there. Next, this might be a little crazy. I'm putting Taylor Heineke at a B. For as craziest season as the Commanders had, I've been one that say on this channel that Heineke was the guy for them last season. He had his ups and downs, but he wasn't a bad quarterback when he was probably on his game. And they turned their season around after starting with 1-3, 1-4 after the Carson Wentz injury and Heineke was in the lineup. This team looked better. And he was, I think, a lot to do with that. So I'm going to put Heineke at a B. Next, Jalen Hurts, S tier, and he probably will be the MVP if he didn't get hurt. The way he ran the football, the way that the Eagles offense used them, the quarterback sneaks, the way he was able to push the ball down the field, the way that he led this Eagles offense to the Super Bowl, I'm going to put Jalen Hurts S tier quarterback. Probably could have won the MVP if he didn't get hurt. And even though I had Mahomes from probably week 10 on as my personal MVP, I could have easily seen a scenario where Jalen Hurts, the way that he played, won the MVP if he did not get hurt. Next is Justin Herbert. This was a little tough. I'm going to put Herbert at a B. Main reason I put Herbert at a B tier quarterback, I mean, he did have the rib injury, and they also had a lot of injuries as well, but it just, you could tell when he had the rib injury and he was in pain for those few weeks, just wasn't the same quarterback. He just wasn't. So that's the only reason I'm going to put him at a B. Next is the MVP, league MVP, Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to put him in an S tier. Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, Patrick Mahomes. Do I need to say anything more? Patrick Mahomes, S tier quarterback. And probably, if not, I'm going to say it. He's just the best quarterback in football. Point blank, period. An offense that you thought was going to struggle without Tyreek wins the Super Bowl. S tier, Patrick Mahomes. Russell Wilson, D. The biggest disappointment, I think, in football. He was brought onto that Broncos team to help him, and he just disappointed tremendously. Next, this is going to be Sam Howell. Not much of a sample size. That's the only reason I'm putting him at a D tier. He got his play later in the year. Not much of a sample size from us. But what he did play was okay, but you could just really get a bigger sample size from Howell. Next is Teddy Bridgewater. He got hurt the moment Tua got hurt. It really just seemed like Tua gets hurt, Bridgewater got hurt. So we didn't see too much Teddy Bridgewater either, outside of a couple of, maybe a start or two here and there, and he got hurt in those starts. So D. Next is Tua. I'm gonna put Tua at an A. He was an early MVP candidate early on in the year for the way that Dolphins offense was clicking when he was the quarterback. Even though he kind of stumbled a bit late, he had another concussion, had another injury, but when he was in the lineup, that Dolphins offense was clicking. So I'm going to put him at an A tier for last year. Next is Carson Wentz, failure. Now, I knew Carson Wentz was done before they even traded for him for the Colts. Then the Commanders, traded him for him, and that was a dud. He's not it. And I've seen that coming. Not good from him. Flacco, he had his moments, but I'm going to put him at a C. I think he was just a tad bit above one of these quarterbacks in this D tier. Now I'm going to put Flacco at a C. Allen, S tier, even though he had a bit of a problem with turning the football over. And he was my personal pick for MVP going into the year, and he had elbow injuries, and he had ability to turn the football over, especially in games late, mainly the Vikings game. I'm going to put him at the S tier still. He's probably my personal favorite quarterback in the NFL outside of Justin Fields, of course. I'm going to put him at an S. Mac Jones is struggled between C and B, but I'm going to put him at a B. He had an injury that forced him out, and he got benched against the Bears, which I don't think they should have done that, but that's neither here nor there. Mac Jones, when he was on his game, was solid. It was just some of those bad games kind of overweighed the good times that he had as a quarterback. So I'm going to put him at a B tier. Next is Mike White. I'm struggling between, I'm going to put Mike White at B, as crazy as that is to say. Mike White came into the Jets offense and he made it look better than Wilson or Flacco. And if Could he have made this Jets team possibly a playoff team if he was a consistent starter the whole year? Who knows? But B tier for me. Zach Wilson, he regressed. He regressed, and I'm so glad as a Bears fan the Jets took him, because it looks like he's out of town. I think he got a lot of hype from that pro day workout, and it just didn't look good for him and the Jets at all. At all. Next is Bailey Zappi. I'm going to put him at C. It was crazy to think I might have put him at a B, but he played solid during his time as the spot starter when Mac Jones had that ankle sprain. So I'm going to put him at the C tier, even though if you want, you could possibly make an argument for B. Baker Mayfield, C tier. It's crazy that he had to go to the Rams to kind of show himself a little bit. The Panthers thing didn't really work out, so I'm going to put him at the C tier. Geno Smith, resurgence season, A tier. Who would have saw this coming from Geno Smith, where he looks like he could be the Seahawks starter for the next couple of years? It looked like that from where he played last year. To go from a guy that was being a backup to Russell Wilson, back up to Phillip Rivers, not really seeing much time with the Giants, back up to Eli, to a Pro Bowl starter. He had an A-tier season. Next is Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm going to put Jimmy G at a B. This 49ers team was kind of, I want to say, it's kind of keeping the ship steady while he was in there. He kind of elevated them a little bit. They had some kind of slip-up games here and there, but it's just his health has been the thing. And Brock Purdy was next. I'm going to put him at a B tier. And for him to do what he did, to come in as the Mr. Irrelevant pick and get this 49ers team on the brink of winning making it to a Super Bowl, and he was an elbow injury away from making an NFC Championship game closer than what it really was. So I'm going to put him at a B. Next is Matthew Stafford. I'm going to put Stafford at a C. It might be crazy. He had the injuries, and you didn't really see a lot of Stafford this year due to those injuries. So, and this Rams offense, it wasn't like they were really clicking all season with him in the lineup. So I'm going to put him at a C tier. Trey Lance, D tier by default, because we didn't see too much of him. He hurt his ankle in the second week of the season. And I'm not going to really count too much of that first week of the season against the Bears, because it was pretty much a monsoon. So there's not much to see from Trey Lance this year, so I'm going to put him at a D. Andy Dalton, C tier quarterback. Wasn't really great. Wasn't really bad. But I'm going to have to put him at a C tier. Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to put him at an A. He had his struggles early on in the year, but he started to play better and better down the stretch, and he really got this Packers team that was looking like it was going to not make the playoffs, and he played better down the stretch, and he got him on the brink of making a playoff appearance out of that mess that they had of a season in Green Bay. So I'm going to put Aaron Rodgers at an A, as much as it might sound crazy for me, the Bear fan. A tier. My guy, Justin Fields. This one's tough. My biasness will say A. The weapons will say B. This was tough, but I am going to put Fields at B. It could easily be A if he had better weapons. The Bears' passing game struggled for pretty much all season long, but it wasn't Justin Fields the problem. We started to see his running ability once he was able to let loose in that. You get him more weapons, and who knows where Justin Fields can be in 2023. I'm putting him at the B tier for now, mainly because the passing game wasn't so great for the Bears, but I always say it's not really his fault too much, but he's the quarterback of the Bears' future. Let's just leave it at that. Jared Goff, I'm going to put Jared Goff at the B tier. He was serviceable. He didn't turn the football over late in the year. They really got the Lions team that wasn't even looking to sniff the playoffs on the brink of a playoff appearance. He played a lot better down the stretch of that season, so I'm going to put Jared Goff B. Jameis Winston, C. Not too much to see from him. It was just like spot between him and Dalton, and that Saints team was not very good, and Winston wasn't great, so C tier for me. Jordan Love, D. You didn't get to see much. Didn't see much. So I'm only putting him at a D. You didn't see much. Kirk Cousins, A tier, even though he has a tendency to choke in big games. And he did it again in the playoffs. Other than that, very good season from Kirk Cousins. Some people threw him in an MVP discussion earlier, and rightfully so. But it's just in big games, Kirk Cousins doesn't show up much. And did lead the comeback against the Colts. But it's just something about those bright lights that Kirk Cousins is kind of goes small in. So I'm going to put him in at 8 for now. Kyler Murray, I'm going to put Kyler Murray at C. Outside of that big comeback game against the Raiders, you didn't really see too much from him. I wasn't one that said Kyler Murray was going to break the world on fire. I actually did a video pre the season that the Cardinals were going to struggle, and some of that was going to have to do with Murray, and it looked like it. And unfortunately, he ended up tearing his ACL later on in the year. So I'm going to put him at a C. Mariota, C tier as well. He had average duty, average play, C tier. And I think the rest of these quarterbacks, whether you go PJ Walker, whether you go Desmond Ridder, or who I could easily put it at D tier, to be honest. Actually, I am. Or Sam Darnold, who the Panthers started to look better with him in the lineup, even though they was just short of winning the division. Sam Darnold had a big reason that this team actually played better down the stretch of the season. So I'm going to put him at a C. Tom Brady is going to be at a B tier, the GOAT. Didn't have that great of a year. When you could see the decline started to happen in his play, even though he still had those Tom Brady moments where he led teams to comebacks, it was just not enough. And I love making fun of Tom Brady because he's a Michigan guy, but I would give the credit, he's the GOAT. And he didn't have that great of a season, but what a career it was. But that's all I have. These are my quarterback rankings. Leave this video a like as it continues to help the channel to grow. Comment your thoughts down below. Did I get somebody wrong? Did I do anything wrong, or do you agree? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And as always, click the sub button and notification bell so you not miss anything. But APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great next day. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.